49ers quarterback Brock Purdy joins the elite in a new mega contract. Does he deserve to be with the elite as he is paid in the NFL? And what about the top 25 players under 25 years old? A lot of young talent in the NFL. Coming up on today's Peacock Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, we love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Please hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, the thumbs up. Let us know you stopped by, even if you're already subscribed. And welcome to the new listeners as well. You can subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. In today's episode of Peacock and Williamson, brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, well, the 49ers getting things done this offseason a lot earlier than last offseason. And now we're hearing the Fred Warner contract is actually getting close to being extended as well. So they already did Kittle. They're going to do Warner. Brock Purdy making 50 times more than he used to on a 5-year, $265 million extension. That's $53 million per year, Matt, on the new contract. If you lump in his fourth-year contract, he was about to make about $5 million. So if you count it as 6 more years, you get $45 million per year, which is one way to look at how much he's getting paid now and deserving of a big bump. And before we get into the specifics, who Brock Purdy is, where the 49ers are right now, I think one thing that gets lost in all of this is how amazing of a story it is that Brock Purdy, the very actual last pick in the NFL draft in 2022, 3 years later, is getting $50 million per year. And how amazing that story is. And when he completed his first pass in the NFL, he was already the greatest Mr. Irrelevant of all time. And for him to be where he is now, it's just ridiculously against the odds. And obviously the team, the locker room, everybody trusts Brock Purdy. He's a leader. He came in ready to play. And in October of his rookie year was already better than the guy they just drafted the year before, number 3 overall, and the expensive veteran quarterback that was already on the roster that had gone to Super Bowls. And so that's pretty remarkable where Brock Purdy is, no matter what you think of him as an NFL quarterback.
It's absolutely amazing. And I'm glad you phrased it that way because it needs to be brought up more and more. I mean, obviously this offseason is what do you pay him? What's he worth? You know, is that the investment you want to make? And we'll get into that, I'm sure. But the fact that he's gotten to this point is so rare, and it is truly amazing. You're on top of this, of course, more than me, and I want to really hear your thoughts heavily on all this. But I think it was a foregone conclusion, at least my perspective, especially when you started seeing a lot of people walking out the door in San Francisco as opposed to coming through the door in free agency, which will yield draft picks, comp picks. And so there is some method to the madness there. And kind of like the Steelers, actually, a lot of the people that left, I think, were expected and there were replacements in hand and they weren't massive, didn't destroy you. You kind of knew this was coming and prepared pretty well accordingly. And a bunch of picks are coming. Now, I definitely think the trust that you mentioned is huge, that the locker room loves them, the coaching staff loves them, and where would they be without them? And boy, there's some luck involved after the Lance debacle to get to where they're at. But I also wonder, will they be happy with this contract in 2 years? And I wonder, do you think the Dolphins are happy with Tua's contract? And who would you rather have? And I think Miami's kind of fallen into rough times all of a sudden. Not entirely because of that. Armstead's retiring and Waddle and Ramsey are higher priced and look like they're getting out. And I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but it's oranges to nectarines,
Yeah. In any deal like this, if you want of it within the next 2 years, it's a bad deal. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah.
that's a big part of it. good quarterbacks versus great quarterbacks. And that's why, like, whether it's Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, the truly elite quarterbacks in the NFL, of Joe Burrow, you can't pay them enough because they're still so closely paid to this next group of guys, even though there's, I think, a massive gap in the tier between the Goffs and the Tua.
And true value.
Even where Justin Herbert currently is, even though if you can project more for him currently, and we've got some questions about that, and maybe we'll save it for the mailbag about what Herbert is paid versus what Brock Purdy is paid. I do have one note on some of that stuff and percentage of the salary cap, which is a good way to look at deals as well, rather than just AAV, which we always do annual, salaries. But they're so immensely valuable. The truly elite quarterbacks, and what is there, 4 or 5 of them in the NFL? They are so valuable. You can't, they should be paid $200 million a year, right? Those guys. And so I don't think
people are probably laughing, but it's true.
Oh, well, I don't think the right way to look at it is that the current, like, that next tier of quarterbacks that Brock Purdy is in, and some of these other quarterbacks that are being paid a lot, are they really worth it? Did they earn this? It's clearly the market rate for that group of quarterbacks is in that $50 million a year range. So if you're getting a Sam Darnold or a Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith, I think you're getting a good deal to have a middle of the league, at least, starting quarterback for $30-something million, $40 million. I think that's a discount. And $50 million is the going rate. And if you're getting an elite player for anything less than like $100 million, then that's a smoking deal. So I don't think that the current group of quarterbacks in the $50 million range is overpaid as much as I think the top guys are probably underpaid by comparison.
It's a great way of putting it. And I've kind of phrased it like this, like, good friend of the show, Mike Sando, puts out his quarterback tiers. And I think that's a real easy way of just lumping them into 5 categories, give or take. And we can fight if this guy's a tier 1 or a tier 2, blah, blah, blah. But if you're a tier 1 quarterback, they're not making close to enough. You said that perfectly. I mean, they're all values right now. You're thrilled to have them. It's better than even having Russell Wilson on a rookie contract, because these guys are awesome, and it doesn't matter what the money is. And the money is flowing in the league like crazy. Tier 2 guys, to me, Stafford, somebody like that. That's clear. Herbert, that's a clear tier 2 guy all day long. I basically don't care what you pay them either, and you pay them. You basically give them a blank check, and it's the going rate, and you can negotiate a little bit, but you pay them, and it's top of the line until the next tier 2 guy comes up a month from now and beats them. Blah blah blah.
Right.
Then it gets hairy to me. If you're And to me, that's the Purdy land. But can Purdy be a tier 2 guy? Is he improving? If so, you're thrilled with the deal. If he takes a slight step backwards, then you're like, maybe we should use a 2nd-round pick on one like the Eagles did with Wentz and Hurts,
And so what'll happen is a lot of people will throw efficiency stats out there for Brock Purdy and be like, not only is he a tier 2, he's nipping at the heels of tier 1, right? Because look at his efficiency numbers, and it's like
sure,
Purdy, Mahomes, and you see all these stats, and it's like,
EPA is great.
A lot of Shanahan, there's a lot of stuff involved, and if you want to do that with Purdy, you got to go back and do it with Jimmy Garoppolo because he was very high in all the same categories, right? Purdy clearly better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but we saw Jimmy Garoppolo go to a Super Bowl, so you can't say, Josh Allen's never been to a Super Bowl. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo has too. So let's be honest with the whole situation. So, is Purdy a tier 2 guy? Is he a top of tier 3 guy? We always used to talk about the sort of the starting NFL quarterback Mendoza line, which was the Kirk Cousins line, like where you want to be over that line and you're better than half the quarterbacks in the NFL. If you're below that line, you need to be finding a new quarterback. And I talked about, wanting out of this deal in the first 2 years. If you find out that you want out of this deal in the next couple of years, before the guarantees are up, because the end of the contracts, you can get out of these types of deals. And this is a long-term deal. It's a 5-year contract, I think, for a reason. We'll find out what the details are and how this is structured. And apparently the latest is that he's got a no trade clause in part of this, because I think this got done early because both sides were motivated to get it done. I think Brock Purdy could have taken this all the way to the end of camp and been like, I want Dak's contract. I want $60 million per year, right? So I think in a lot of ways, he saved the 49ers job. And so Shanahan and John Lynch are like, let's give this guy whatever we have to do to get this deal done now. Yes, no trade clause, all this stuff. So we can get this deal done and not have this cloud hanging over our heads like we had last year with multiple contracts. This time last year, they were still trying to figure out Christian McCaffrey's new deal and restructure for Trent Williams that went too long. And then the Ayuk thing, obviously, which was insanely ridiculous. So I think for that reason, the 49ers wanted to get a lot of stuff done early this year, which was a good plan of action. And so for that reason, I like where the 49ers are, and the vibes are a lot better going into training camp without this stuff hanging over their heads. And they've got the leader of their football team ready for everything, mandatory minicamp, OTAs, and all that. And then, we can argue about whether they got paid too much, whether Purdy actually took a discount to get the no trade clause and stick around and be there for his team and all of those things. And we can argue about all that. But in the end, it's a market rate deal. I do want to talk a little bit more about the market and where it is. And Brock Purdy's, because we're comparing Brock Purdy's contract to some contracts that have been signed 2 years ago. And the league moves fast.
Yeah, right.
And inflation is a real thing, Matt. So we'll talk about that next. And then dig into PFF's ranking of the top 25 players under 25. And I'm still shocked at some of the guys that are still under 25 that are already established superstars in the NFL next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and you wonder, where did all that money go? Between dining out, shopping online, for me, it's, coffee. If you don't have it brewed at home, you got to go pay for some coffee. That ain't cheap, and you start stacking that up every single day. Entertainment, going out, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Tons of insights. When you start using Monarch, you realize how much you're spending on food delivery, budget smarter, save more, and of course, the easy collaboration, managing money with your partner, smoother than ever. Track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, Matt. Taking a look at the Brock Purdy contract. And
a couple other points I want to definitely bring up about it. Yeah.
Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll put this up on the screen here, and I'll bring it up.
All right.
I want to bring up percentage of the salary cap at signing for quarterbacks, because I think it is a pretty important aspect of this and the way to look at a contract, because we say, okay, he made $53 million per year. Quarterback B makes 52.9. Quarterback C makes 53.1. Which one's better? Who's got the better deal? Well, if one of those contracts was signed 4 years ago, that's a huge difference than the one that was signed today for the same annual value. So I want to bring this up on the screen right now, Matt, and just I think it's pretty telling. I think this one graph is much more telling about what quarterbacks contracts really are at the time of signing. So these are quarterback contract value relative to the salary cap. So this is percentage of the salary cap when these deals were signed. And Brock Purdy is only 14th in the NFL at 18.98, so less than 20%. So that's kind of the area where you're talking about with quarterbacks. The top quarterbacks are getting paid around 20% of the salary cap. So less than that is you're usually in a pretty good place if you truly believe in your QB1. And if you're more than that, then you're probably paying more at a star level for your guy. Number one in the NFL at 24.47 at the time of signing, which was 2023, Joe Burrow. Then Dak's last year is actually less, even though it's more AAV, was 23.49%. Then it's Herbert, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, who was signed in 2022. The Mahomes deal was 2020, which is just a completely new deal now. I don't even know how to look at the Patrick Mahomes deal because it's changed so many times.
Allen's is getting like that too. Allen's is a little bit of a mirage here too. Yeah,
and he's got a ton of guarantees. Josh Allen does.
Right,
Josh Allen signed his. I was like, I thought he was going to get $70 million per year.
Right.
So,
right.
Like that's an interesting one. That's just ahead. That's at number 13. So that's as percentage of the cap. It's 19.7. That's below Goff and Tua and Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love and the Deshaun Watson deal, which is obviously one of the worst deals in the history of sports. Then you got Brock Purdy all the way down at 14, which is 18.98% of the cap. just ahead of Kirk Cousins' deal last year, 17.62% of the cap. Then Rodgers, then Derek Carr, Stafford's deal, which is looking like a massive bargain because he's, an older quarterback and they're going short term on that one. So does any team have a better deal at quarterback than the Rams with Matthew Stafford?
That's a great point. And they just restructured him, and you can see why he was a little unhappy leading up to that deal. Now, I think that's also part of it. Like, this is a great graphic, but some of it's a little misleading because, like, Allen and Stafford just re-signed. So this year's not bad, but there's some bigger years ahead. Like I would have to really diagnose each contract. But your point's dead on in terms of relative to salary cap. Like, just a small example. I mean, I always spin it back to the Steelers because I know so much about them. They traded for DK Metcalf, gave him this huge contract. Well, the contract they gave him is a smaller relative to cap value than the one that Seattle gave him 3 years ago. The cap was just that much smaller. Everyone,
Right.
So it's actually a smaller deal at his age, and that's very true for a lot of these quarterbacks. And the two things I wanted to make sure I just threw out there with the Purdy situation. Now, it probably never gets to this, but imagine if he truly became a free agent. Like, I am not under contract. They don't franchise him, or they franchise him once and then he hits free agency, and it becomes several teams bidding against. I mean, it would be at least $10 million a year more. I mean, at least someone will pay you insane numbers, Raiders or somebody, right.
So if you're arguing he's underpaid, the market would tell you that if Brock Purdy is a free agent, he would get at least what he got. And that's the other point is that, imagine if Patrick Mahomes is a free agent, right? He would get
exactly. There's no limit, right?
Whatever he's getting paid for the next 50 years, like just something ridiculously insane for how important the quarterback position is in the NFL. And just for your football team, and this is what's crazy about the quarterback position, is just to have the feeling that you're going into a season and you're going to have a better quarterback than maybe half your opponents is worth like everything. Just for that level of quarterback.
Right. Mixed Shanahan's mind, boost it even a little further, right.
Because if you don't have that, you get fired.
Yeah, you're fired. Right.
Yeah. So ask Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch if Brock Purdy's worth it after what they did with the Trey Lance move, and they're lucky to have their jobs after that kind of a debacle of a move, and ownership is okay with you now and allowing you to continue to do things because you found Brock Purdy.
So the last thing I want to throw out there too is I urge people to realize this is not fantasy football. This is not building a puzzle on your kitchen table with pieces or a stock portfolio. These are human beings. And I'm sure it's been brought up to you too. Just let Purdy walk, draft another one, start over. Because I get this all the time. Steelers just need to tank and go 5-12, and then they'll get their quarterback and they'll be fine. However, if you walk around the Niners facility, the Steelers facility, and you see all these Super Bowl trophies, and the expectations are at least to go to the playoffs every year, and you've built generational leadership there going back to Montana, Rice, Joe Green, whatever, you can't just go to Cam Hayward or Bosa or Trent Williams or Watt and say, we're going to let the leader of our team go and just see what happens and wing it for a year. Like, you just can't do that. I mean, I know the Steelers quarterbacks have been a mess, but you can't just be like, we're going to do nothing this year and lose on purpose, because then the locker room says, I'm not here anymore.
Right. And obviously there's some self-preservation. The coaches and GMs get fired.
Right.
Like that. And so it has to come from, and I get, because the fans aren't getting fired. You're going to still be a fan of that team in 5 years. So you're
Nor is ownership.
It's like, yeah, we're ownership. So that kind of thing happens. It has to come from ownership, because no GM or coach is trying to tank ever.
Right. And you see teams like the Browns that kind of take those routes, and then all of a sudden you don't really have any culture, and it's double-edged sword.
Yeah. And guess what? You tanked for that quarterback. It turns out not a guarantee.
It might not be good, right?
Good, because there's still only 5 of them in the world.
Right. And not all of them are Burrow's. The only one's like the first overall pick.
Yeah. Let's talk top 25 players under 25 years old. This list from Pro Football Focus, but pretty fascinating how much more talent there is in the NFL right now. Who are the next stars that potentially get paid? Some of them already paid and on their second massive contracts. Next. Matt, you brought this list to my attention that PFF dropped their top 25 players under 25 years old. And, these lists happen every year, and we're getting into list season now, post-draft and post-schedule release. So going to be a lot of those. But I was blown away to open this up and see that Penei Sewell is still under 25 years old. Like that's insane to me. And he's already into his second contract, and he's one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, and will be turning 25 just before the season starts, right? Or right after the season starts.
Yeah. So the parameters are you have to be 25 or under the age of 25 before week 1. So like they mentioned Sauce Gardner and Aiden Hutchinson, they're going to turn, they just missed. They're a little bit too old. But Sewell's unbelievable. I mean, I don't think we gave it enough credence when he came out of Oregon that I think he only played 1 year basically for them as an 18-year-old and was utterly dominant. And I joked, and it's not even a joke. I mean, Sewell and Tyler Shuck were in the same recruiting class at Oregon. Yeah, I mean, like, that's bonkers. Yeah, and he's no younger than Shuck.
That's wild. Shuck should have played not only under backing up, and he was at Oregon with Justin Herbert, but like multiple seasons with Herbert. Right?
Oh, yeah. And been his successor for multiple years. And then maybe came out early and been in the league for 2 years since then. Who knows? But Sewell's really remarkable. I mean, there aren't many non-quarterbacks on offense that if I'm still building a team now, I would take over Sewell. Like, I don't think there's any lineman. I know enough about him, and he's still young enough. Maybe I'd take Justin Jefferson and Chase, but that might be about it. And oh, by the way, there's no rookies on this list, nor should there be. Like, you can't put Hunter or Ward or any of those guys on here yet.
I mean, maybe the one player I would for sure take over Penei Sewell right now today is Jayden Daniels. He comes in number 4 on this list, but I mean, just
non-quarterbacks though is a different story to me.
And the thing is, Jayden Daniels won't be on this list next year because he played a lot of college football. He was at Arizona State first.
Yeah.
And I remember him throwing to Brandon Ayuk back in the day when I was watching a lot of Brandon Ayuk tape, and it was Jayden Daniels. Who's this guy, man? He might be a future NFL quarterback. He's athletic and had a great arm. And then he kind of disappeared and popped up again at LSU, and I didn't realize it was the same guy. I was like, oh, that's Jayden Daniels from Arizona State. So he was a little bit older coming out than some of the other young quarterbacks, but instantly looking like a star in the NFL. And probably the only guy on this list I'd probably take clearly over Penei Sewell. But it is amazing. You're wondering why, like, wow, is Penei Sewell continually getting better and better? And it's like, yeah, he's still only 24 years old. He is still getting better.
He still is. And I'm just scrolling now to double check, but you mentioned Daniel's path. I think Nick's and Pennick's paths are also pretty interesting, and neither is on this list. So there's only 2 quarterbacks. There's Stroud and there's Daniels, and they're both about to age out. The quarterbacks just come in the league older now. Like I was about to say, should we be worried that there's not a good generation of young quarterbacks coming in? I just think that they're entering the league older.
And you need the other guys from that class with Jayden Daniels that are still under 25 years old, Caleb Williams, Drake May,
and those type of guys, right?
To hit and take off this year, so they are on this list next year.
Mm-hmm. And even Ward's older, but looks like next year's class is going to be good. So I didn't mean like, boy, I'm worried about the young crop coming in.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's only 2 quarterbacks and they're about to be done off the list, I found was interesting. But a lot of good names on here, though. The league is rich with talent.
Quarterback is like the inverse of running backs. Like running backs are done at 27, 28. Quarterbacks are just barely kind of like, okay, now I'm ready to be like an adult and like run this franchise, right? And so any younger than 25 to be a great quarterback is rare. And if you're drafting quarterbacks in the NFL, take notice, man. It helps to have a guy that's played a lot of college football and life experience before you draft them and put all that on them in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that the league is kind of happy about. Like, stay in school another year, for some of these dudes and come out a little bit more mature. The quarterbacks I'm talking about.
Yeah. Even if you play at 3 colleges, the NIL might actually help the NFL make fewer mistakes at quarterback.
Yeah. And then you're maybe a little more, balanced off the field. You've had money, all those type of things too. And you mentioned running backs. I just want to see how many good young running backs they have. And it's Bijan and Gibbs, which I think are easy ones. And a Chan is near the bottom of the list, which I'm not sure I'd have a Chan on there, but I mean, he's hard to play against.
I mean, there's not that many players under 25 in the NFL. I mean, there's a lot of them, but even if you look at last
You're
year's
right.
draft, like the 49ers, the 49ers is a good example just because I know offhand exactly how old all the 49ers draft picks were last year. Like Pearsall's not eligible for this. He's going to the second year of his career. And I think 3 or 4 of the
NIL,
49ers
COVID. I mean, a lot of these guys come in the league and only give you 1 year and then they're not eligible for this list.
Right. There's
definitely a smaller percentage of stars to pick from than there used to be. I mean, I remember like when Juju came to the league, he was 20. You could have been like Sewell. There's a couple of those. You don't see those as often anymore.
I want to go down to number 18 on this list, Christian Benford, who has kind of come out of nowhere for the Buffalo Bills, who have gone through a lot of weird stuff with their cornerbacks over the last, feels like a half decade, and drafted a lot of guys. And all of a sudden, Christian Benford out of nowhere became a player for them. He actually shows up on this list. Number 18 of the top 25 players under the age of 25 years old, according to PFF. And a lot of people locally know Christian Benford in the Buffalo area, but I think league-wide, some fan probably opened this up and goes, who the heck is Christian Benford?
I think you're 100% right. He's probably the least known name on here, but that does not mean by any stretch of the imagination he is not deserving. And you're right. They have gone through a lot of corners, but they also used the first-round pick this year on a corner. If he hits and they can match those two together for the next 4, 5, 6 years, like a good team may have gotten a lot better because Benford's a legit star.
Speaking of legit stars, I'm a little surprised that Jalen Carter's all the way down at pick 17. Now
that one bothered me.
Not pick 17, but rank 17. I think one thing you have to remember anytime you're looking at a Pro Football Focus list, it's an analytically driven company. So you might know that Jalen Carter is this talented, but the statistics and the analytics show that, this is how well he played last year, according to how we measure things. So if you look at Jalen Carter, you wonder why he's a little bit lower on the list, even though it would be like what Daniels, Sewell, Carter, if we were drafting from this list, right? He would be a top 3 player that is selected here, or 4 after CJ Stroud as well, probably. But this, they're going by their own grades, and so people always have a problem with PFF because of things like that. So it's not like I have a problem with this necessarily. I was just surprised because Jalen Carter being on this list, you'd think he was top 5 easy.
I thought so too. I mean, you mentioned he's pretty far down there. And I'm not ripping on these two dudes, but like Puka is 2, Kyle Hamilton is 3. Like I might have Jalen Carter or both those guys, and those guys are great.
Got to be some projection going on when you're talking about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know their grades are part of this. The other thing I think is absolutely noteworthy are there's only 25 names. 3 of them are Texans, 4 of them are Lions. Like that's pretty good. If you can have that many young guys on one squad in the line, these guys are already playoff teams, might not be going away for a while.
Yeah, you got Laporta on the list. You got Anderson on the list from the Texans.
Yeah.
You got Stingley on the list. Real young.
Gibbs, Joseph, Stingley. It's those 2 teams make up a pretty large portion of it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of up the middle players too. Like, there's guards. There's Tyler Smith on the list. Nickel corners in Cooper DeJean, safety, Kirby Joseph. The other line on this list is 25 on this list, and Brock Bowers 14 on the list. Rookie last year for the Raiders at tight end. And
that was another thing I noticed was maybe this drastically changes because of last year's class, but no tackles. And there was all those guys drafted in the first round, the offensive tackles. Only Penei Sewell. I'm sorry.
Sewell, and he's been around. What year is he?
He's about
2021, right? 2021.
And he's about to fall off. So is Alt going to be on here? Is Fawaga or Fatanu or one of those guys? Who knows? But no tackles. That's amazing.
I didn't think about that from last year's class. It takes a while for offensive linemen. It also takes a while recognition wise for offensive linemen.
Always.
Some wide receiver, Brian Thomas, perfect example. He comes out as an awesome second half of the year. It's like, okay, next great superstar. Some rookie offensive tackle could have had a phenomenal half of a rookie season. Nobody in the world is going to be talking about it, right?
I always get a kick out of that for like Pro Bowls or things that fans elect. Like if you're a guard, you might be the best guard in the league. You hardly get any votes. The next year you do, but then you're on the Pro Bowl ballot like 3 years longer than you should be at the end too. Like it takes a while to get on, but it's hard to get off.
Get your questions in for this week's mailbag at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Whether it's the Purdy contract, top 25, under 25, someone that got snubbed, or who you think is going to make the list next year. And of course, you got to subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And Matt and I back tomorrow. We're going to start breaking down some past drafts and regrading some drafts because, as we know, it takes 3 years to really learn a lot about a draft class, and some of the players we just talked about were drafted 3 years ago as well. Thanks for tuning in. Back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.